Hello and welcome to Birdeye Live, the show dedicated to the digital transformation of local businesses everywhere. I'm your host, Justin Meredith, and join me as we learn from industry experts about the how and the why for taking your business online and claiming the most valuable real estate on the internet, that first page of Google. Now, if you're tuning in live, if you're watching us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, feel free to say hello in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Now, also, please join me in welcoming my co-host for today, Sirat Singh. Sirat is on the marketing team with us here at Birdeye, and she has been hard at work dissecting the data and the insights that we pulled from our most recent report, the State of Online Reviews 2025. And today, Sirat, you're going to help us go through some of the latest highlight clips from our recent webinar with Steve Wiideman. So welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you here. How are you doing?
Excited to be here, especially because State of Online Reviews 2025 was such an intense in-house effort, and covering 150 plus businesses to create such an extensive and insightful report. I think Steve did more than justice to shedding light on some of the critical insights that we could have drawn from this report. So based on that, I think it's pretty clear that online reviews are changing faster than we thought. In terms of growth volume or how review sentiment is now playing a bigger role. So I think businesses need to stay on top of these shifts. So I'm really excited to dive into this discussion today.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and jump into our first clip. And in this one, Steve is really kind of explaining us the the growth in review volume and the importance of reviews and the based on some of the data that we got from this report. So let's take a look at what he said. Do they matter to your search ranking? And has their level of importance evolved over the years?
Yeah, I think your study showed that more than anything. Look at the growth rate and some of the percentages you came up with. I mean, review volume grew by 13% in 2024, and those featuring comments went up to 81% from 79. It's kind of a no-brainer. And the biggest thing that I thought was the most interesting from the findings was the review requests jumping up 25%. And I know part of it is us business owners always want to look at what shows up when someone performs a search and making sure that we have as many, if not more, of those ratings and reviews in our competition. But I think that there's starting to become an awareness in the importance of sentiment across the web, especially when we're looking for our own business and modifier keywords like reviews and complaints and things like that, because we're seeing more of the citations from other sources other than Google. So I kind of feel like, for a while we loved Yelp, and that was the only place we would focus our energy. And now thankfully it's really focused on Google.
This was a really interesting piece from Steve because he notes that, despite Google's massive importance, I mean, their share of total reviews is growing. People are leaving more reviews on Google. There is still an importance of making sure that your reach is wide in terms of where people can find information about your business. And so that includes Facebook, that includes Bing, all these other places that maybe are not just your Google business profiles or reviews or these other listing sites. Those are still important. But what's really interesting is that the activity behind these reviews is growing. So we're seeing an increase in reviews with comments. We're seeing an increase in reviews of requests or review requests, which is huge, which also means everybody is listening to us and what we're saying. And we're saying, ask your customers for a review because that is the best way to generate more reviews. And in fact, in this webinar, we did talk a little bit more about how to increase your reviews and how to really do this in a way that, provides those positive results. So let's take a look at what he said. But before we do that, Sarah, actually, do you have any other takeaways from that first clip? I wanted to make sure we covered everything.
There's the T of EEAT, the trustworthiness factor, and they contribute heavily to that.
Yes.
So while I think that Google is still at the top and even Steve mentioned that the sentiment is changing around reviews, right? So businesses want to know what customers think because they actually want to improve, and customers want to share their feedback because they expect an improved service. So I think while Google is right now the place where the maximum amount of these activities are happening, reviews and review responses. I think businesses need to sort of stay aware of other emerging platforms as well, like you said, including, AI search engines. But I think right now Google is the place to put your focus on.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and I think the key is to kind of balance where you're focusing now and, being agile enough to adapt to new emerging platforms. So,
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. So let's talk about, let's talk about this next clip, which is, where we're going to talk more about what you have to do in order to generate more reviews. And Steve had some really important insights here, and I think we should highlight those. So let's take a look. Like, number one tip, I think I've given every single person who's ever asked me, how do you generate more reviews? It's ask every single one of your customers for a review. And we'll get
I even
into
asked
how
a
you
student
ask
for a review
and the
last
different.
night. How embarrassing is
Yeah.
that, right? I think if you go to, you said some really nice things about me during the office hours today. You think maybe you could share some of that same feedback on my professor for me, because it's kind of important to my reputation as a adjunct professor. And he's like, dude, I'll do that right now for you. So
Love it.
always ask for reviews. AAFR, right? That's our new tattoo that we keep on our wrist now to
Yeah.
register.
It is. It is. I mean, and it's a numbers game, right? How many people go out of their way to leave a positive review without being asked? It's just, you could provide 99% of amazing experiences, but to really, I mean, you'd have to like blow their socks off or just give them your service completely for free in order for them to go out of their way to do a review on their
Or
own.
even better, when they come into the building, you ask them, hey, how can we make sure today that you have the absolute best experience?
I think this is a really interesting approach, because one of the things that we did talk about in this webinar is comboing your in-person requests with your virtual requests and making that mental tie of that face-to-face interaction of like, hey, it would really mean a lot to us. It would, help me and our reputation if you could leave us a review. And you could provide them with an easy QR code, and that would make it super quick and easy right there. Or you could say, hey, I'm just letting you know you'll probably receive a text or an email from us asking for a review. And if you could, take a minute to leave one, that would mean the world to us. And when you do that, in that customer's mind, they're already writing that review in their head, regardless of whether or not they were planning on it. But because you put that thought in their head, like, oh yeah, I wonder what would I say if I were to leave a review. They're starting to do that in their minds already. It's just kind of a natural psychological thing. And so whenever you hit them with that review request, you can see a much better success rate because they're already prepped. It's not like they're getting hit out of nowhere with it. And, I think, and during the webinar, we had a few people who were commenting saying this is exactly what was happening to us. Like, as soon as we started following up with that email and asking in person, our number of reviews skyrocketed. And so I think that's just a really important perspective to have, is, that AAFR, always ask for reviews, and making sure you can combo those in-person requests with those virtual ones to really make sure that you're hitting on every side of it.
definitely. I think AAFR is a golden statement. Always ask for reviews. It's great. And I loved Steve's example of, someone just entering a building and you ask them, what can I do to make your experience better today? I think that's an instant way of, making elevating someone's experience, so to speak. So I think while all of this sounds basic, it can really change the game for businesses. And maybe you don't need to be asking constantly, but a consistent effort, maybe at checkout and post-service follow-up, even a quick follow-up thank you email, and definitely striking a balance between in-person and online reviews or SMS reviews.
Yeah.
So it can really change the game.
Yeah. And, it's interesting though, because, to this next clip that we're going to, talk about, it's interesting because even though people are requesting reviews more and people are leaving reviews more, it's taking more requests to get that review. And we're seeing an increase in the number of touch points it takes. And that's going to be a really interesting thing. And so essentially, the question is, and this is what Steve talks about, is how do you navigate through this review fatigue? And I think that's, there's a lot more businesses that are using tools to help them request those reviews, kind of like what we were talking about, which are the things that you should do. But now the next kind of phase or the next level of this is, okay, I'm sending my review requests and I'm getting more reviews, but it's still taking quite a bit of work just to get that review from a person. It takes a few touch points, it takes a couple of texts, or it takes a few emails, or maybe even a few visits and back and forth. How do you get through that? How do you navigate through, review fatigue? And so here is what Steve had to say when it comes to how you can kind of help solve this side. Now, I wanted to touch on this real quickly of navigating review fatigue. So something that we've been seeing in our data is that it takes 9% more touch points or touches to get that review left, I guess is what not responded to.
I saw the number at like 17 in the report. And I'm like, wow, it takes 17 times in some cases to get somebody to actually leave a review. That's crazy. But yeah, I think creativity, like I mentioned earlier, wins over beating a dead horse. You can send 17 of the same messages, and what's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So an example might be, hey, this is Jesse from the dental office. Did you forget something? As a text message, and it's like a guaranteed open rate thing. We're like, oh my God, did I forget something? I don't think so. And Jesse replies back, yes, you forgot to show us your love with a rating. Here's the link. We appreciate you. You can get really creative in how you're interacting and setting up some of those, those different, I don't want to call them bots, but different sequences of how you're responding to folks to get them to leave a review. So, and again, you can generate some of these by going to ChatGPT or Meta AI or any of them to come up with ideas. I'm here too. If you want to throw some by me, you could always, look me up or, contact me and I'll definitely give you some feedback. But yeah, I think the fatigue part of it's, you got to be interesting or they're just not going to click or open.
Yeah. So finding creative ways to capture your customer's attention when you're reaching out to them for a review, kind of like the example that he was saying. And, one of the other things that I've, noticed that helps is personalizing that request and finding ways to not make it seem so automated, but maybe, adding a personal touch as long as that's allowed, whether you're in healthcare with HIPAA, you don't want it to say anything too personal or anything like that, but just something to make it seem more authentic of where it's coming from. And, finding ways to capture their attention. There's a lot that you can do once you've already established the process of requesting the reviews consistently. How you request is going to be an important thing, because as more businesses do this, the harder it's going to be to cut through that noise. Now, one of the things that we've also talked about in this webinar, and this was a big one, is negative reviews and how you handle negative reviews. Because one of the biggest, roadblocks for people to be confident enough is, I guess, a word, or comfortable in requesting reviews is, well, I don't want to ask people for reviews because I don't want to receive negative reviews, or I don't want to respond to a negative review because I don't want to shine more light on it. And, when we talked about this with Steve, it really, is not the case whenever you think about it that way. And we'll listen to what he says and what this part of the conversation is, and then we'll kind of dig more into it. But let's take a look at what he was saying there.
So I think the negative review, the idea of negative reviews is a positive thing to help us to improve the quality of service and the things that we offer. Obviously, there's going to be those anomalies where you just got a really weird person who does a really weird thing, and then you simply request for it to be removed, or it doesn't represent your business right. And you just have to deal with those as they come if you can't get them removed. On the response side of things, though, for sure, we want to make sure we're thanking them. We're apologizing they had a horrible experience. We want to make it better. Call this number, let's bring you back and see what we can do. And then when they call the number, say, we want to give you another chance. Please go back into this location. We've already spoken with them. Here's a promo code to replace whatever it is that you paid for last time, or meal, or whatever it happens to be, and then let us know how we did after that service. And you might actually see the person change the review within a week, depending on whether they decide to come back or not, or if they had that bad of an experience. So I think responding is critical, and the faster you respond, the more that business is paying attention.
Yeah. So the way you respond to negative reviews is important. And in my mind, and in my experience that I've seen with other businesses, and what some of our customers have done and what they've told us, is when you respond authentically with a solution-oriented approach, where you're not trying to argue, you're not trying to combat or disagree, and you're just trying to solve the problem, and you're just trying to show that you care, that can carry a massive impact, not only on the person that left the review, but also on the other people reading your reviews. Now, imagine if you had a negative review, if you don't respond to it and you don't address it, that is just a negative review or a negative statement about your business floating out in the wind of the internet for anybody to see with zero context from your end. It's really important that you always respond to these negative reviews, whether to share your side of the story or to solve that problem. And it's one of those things that is a little bit uncomfortable, but it's really important. But one of the things that's really difficult too is, how do you do that at scale? And doing it at scale is really difficult, because if you have 100 locations and let's say you're, like a restaurant, and you get 10 to 15 reviews a day, or maybe, two or three, but you still get 2 or 3 reviews across 100 locations, that's 300 reviews a day. And if you're getting negative reviews, taking the time every single day to write out a well thought out, personalized response is really difficult, especially if you're trying to respond to all those positive ones at the same time. And that's where, a tool like Birdeye is really helpful, because we allow you to leverage AI to respond to these reviews in a much more personalized, human, authentic way at scale. Now, there's still the human element or the human oversight element, where you should be reading those, reviewing them, tweaking them if needed, and then posting. You never want to just like ChatGPT, copy, paste, publish without reviewing anything. But leveraging the right technology to help you do this at scale can be a massive game changer if you want to keep that authentic customer experience consistent across every location. Another thing, though, that I wanted to talk about that we discussed in the webinar is not so much on the review side, but more so on the engagement side. Like, when we're talking about these reviews and we're talking about the people reading these reviews, these are people who are searching for your business or your service. They click on your business profile and they're looking at your reviews. They're clicking at your website. They're looking at your photos. They're engaging with your business profile. Now, one of the things that we've learned is in the last year or so, maybe back late last year when we had like the leak with Google, but this is also something that I think just about every SEO probably assumed, is the importance of your click rates and engagement and user activity on your profile also has an impact on your search ranking. And let's take a look at what Steve had to say about that. And then Sierra, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well once we get this from Steve. So let's see.
But click-through rate as a user behavior signal is still as important, if not more important than ever, as we think about how AI is changing the ecosystem of location-based search. So I would say, if for no other reason, let's make sure that we stand out. When somebody's doing top rated and highly rated and best, those AI platforms are going to look at our ratings and our reviews, and they're going to determine whether or not we're a better answer than somebody who might have better ratings and reviews. Mm-hmm. So I think it's more important than ever when we think about, the old Google saying of things not strings, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's really important for for businesses just to think about, is we really need to pay attention to our search appearance more now than ever.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah. And Paul here in the comments says every customer is asked for a review, which is as good as is the pure number one tip I think I've given every single person who's ever asked me, how do you generate more reviews? It's ask every single one of your customers for a review. And we'll get into how you ask for a review last night. Yeah. And so I just think that's important, that engagement on your profile matters. So when you're thinking about configuring your business profile, you're thinking about your reviews, which are massively important, but you should also be thinking about all the other elements that somebody could be clicking on: your photos, your services, your phone number, everything that could be there, your hours
Okay.
is massively important. That stuff is so crucial. Sarah, what do you think?
Okay. CTR is crucial. And as you said, outside of the reviews as well, it's about how your entire listing performs as, in general, overall. So if the listing isn't compelling, then people won't click. So if, you need to have strong images that clearly depict how good your service is or how good the ambience is or how good the hygiene is if it's the case of healthcare practices, well crafted descriptions that actually answer a user's query. So up to date business information, because nobody wants to get frustrated on the phone waiting if the business information is inaccurate. Yeah, so I think all this information contributes to better CTRs, which sort of tell Google that your business should rank higher. So like it's all the little things that
Mhm.
sort of add up.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and it's one of those. I mean, it makes sense, right? You when it comes to the way Google looks at a business and the way that these AI search engines look at a business, it's very human-like. And when you were to put yourself in the shoes of, let's say you are the Google algorithm, and I ask like, "Hey Siri, can you give me the best dentist in North Austin?" What are some of the things that you would look at? And you would look at reviews, and then you would also look like, well, he's asking me right now, so let me make sure that if I give him an option, it's open. So he's checking the hours. If you are looking to make sure that the place is clean, you want to make sure that the business is reputable. So you're going to look at reviews and you're going to say, okay, do other people say that this dentist is awesome? And you're going to be looking at all those things, and then you're going to present your options to me. You're not going to just say, okay, let's just think of the first three dentists that I can think of that have the word dentist Austin on their website a bunch of times. You want to give me really good, solid quality results. And you're going to be looking at like, okay, well, if I'm looking at a business profile to suggest to Justin for the best dentist, what are the ones that the people are spending the most time on? Which one seems to be the most compelling out of the other people who are looking? And that algorithm will kind of compile all of that stuff and help decide what it should be presenting as those options in that search query. Now, we've talked a lot we've talked about a lot of things here, but one of the important things too is in with this whole report is that we've been looking at what businesses have been doing. And so what have they done this past year when it comes to generating reviews, asking for them, responding to them, where are people leaving reviews? We've looked at all of that data of what's been happening up to this point. But what's the next phase? What's the next stage of search, the next phase of reviews? How will humans and technology kind of, what's that relationship look like as it relates to how they find the businesses in the real world? And Steve had some really interesting things, and I'm excited to see some of his predictions, and hopefully some of them will come true as well. But let's take a look at what Steve thinks the future of local search reviews and local businesses will look like.
So yeah, I think the future is we need to plan our business around voice. If we can get a customer to get what they need without touching their mobile device or picking up the phone to call somebody, then we win. In 5 years from now, when the competition is still trying to figure it out, we've been playing with it, over the course of years, and we've managed to do something no one's ever done and create a seamless experience for a customer without having to do a lot of taps and touches and scrolls and swipes and so forth.
Yeah, and I think that's important because in my mind, when I use the meta glasses or when I'm talking over like with the advanced voice with Chat GPT, like I know that the technology is there. I can talk to it like a human. I can have it look at the thing I'm looking at. The thing that's the bottleneck is just making it work together, which is where the agents come in, having your meta be able to leave a review on Google. Yeah. And this is exciting because the future is bright when it comes to this technology. And I think he's spot on when it comes to voice. And
Yeah.
it's just a matter of time before the voice reaches the point where it's going to become a native thing that people do. It's not quite there yet, but it's coming. We mentioned the meta glasses, and there's things like Siri and Hey Google and Alexa, and those quite haven't reach the point of that natural human interaction to where you feel like you have a true virtual assistant, but it's really close. And when it comes to the future of local search and the future of online reviews, optimizing for that stuff is going to be really important. And, I've used ChatGPT search a lot, and I've used the voice mode, and it would be incredible to say, hey, ChatGPT, I need to set up a reservation tonight for 2 at 7 o'clock somewhere in the Austin area that is, Italian. What are some of the good places? And it might give me a few options, and I can ask, like, okay, well, what are the reviews saying? And you can just kind of talk to it. And I think that once we get to that point where it's really natural, and we're getting there, that's going to really change the way that people search. But right now, as everybody knows, when you like say, hey Siri, give me some options, it'll just be like, here are the options I found on the web. And then you have to go on your phone anyways and look through it. It's just not there yet, but it's coming. And I think that's going to be an exciting shift when it comes to the way businesses, position themselves. That'll be important in the way that, SEOs are working. But it'll be exciting for sure.
Absolutely. I think voice is definitely shaping up to be sort of the next frontier. And we're, as you said, we're closer to it than, to this future where voice search takes over than most businesses realize right now. And I just want to be able to say someday that, hey Siri or hey Google, can you leave like a 5-star review for my dentist, but also add that, the scraping technique today wasn't at par with what it usually is. So just, getting comfortable with that scenario, it's not as far as we think it is. So I think businesses that sort of invest in creating this seamless, sort of voice-friendly experience will be ahead of the curve. So definitely something to look out for in the near future.
Definitely. Or even on the flip side, where now let's say you finish your dental appointment and you are, like, hey, I need to, can you map me back home? And it's like, great. Did you enjoy your visit at the dentist? Do you want to leave a review? Like, there could be ways on the other side now where the AI is requesting reviews for the business. Maybe you get a text message and your voice assistant pops up, hey Justin, you just got a text about, from Austin Dental, and they're wondering if, you want to leave a review. You want me to do that for you? Right? So now it's like, oh, well, yeah, sure, why not? Let's go ahead and leave a review. It was great. You can do, let's give it a 5-star review. And it could be natural, and it could be a lot easier and quicker that way. It'll be interesting. I'm sure it'll be very intrusive for a lot of people in that sense, but like with everything, the thing that feels intrusive at first, eventually people start to get more comfortable and they start to trust it more. Same thing with like the internet and with all kinds of different, technologies that have happened. It's a little bit scary at first, but then it eventually kind of just becomes a part of everyday life. And so in this webinar, we talked about all kinds of stuff. Go ahead, Siri.
I was just going to say that we've had like 5 normals since 2020. So
Yeah.
every year there's a new normal. I think it's just a part of how it is now.
Oh yeah.
We just keep adapting. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, we talked a little bit about Meta, but the wearables aspect is also going to be a huge, factor going into the future as well. There's a lot that's coming, and it's really exciting. And, in this discussion that we had with Steve, we covered all kinds of really amazing topics from, how to generate reviews, from the data that was covered in the State of Online Reviews report, where people are leaving them, how people are requesting them, the best way to manage your responses. And, when it comes to the overall management of your online reputation, there's nothing better than using the right technology. And, that's something like Birdeye, where you can manage all your listings, your Google reviews. You can make sure all the information on your listings is correct. So not even just your business profile, but your Bing, your Yelp, your Apple, your everything can be managed in one place, no matter how many locations you have. And you can make sure it's all accurate, and then you can request all those reviews automatically from Birdeye for all of those locations. track them for the sentiment. You can get a sentiment analysis breakdown of you versus your competitors. And then you can also respond to those reviews in a much more human-like way with AI. And then you can take that and then post it on social media, which you can also manage for all your locations from Birdeye. And on top of that, you can also do your normal social media posts and create images. It's a complete ecosystem for your online reputation for a local business. It's really remarkable. I mean, I can't stress it enough that if you have multiple locations, or even if you have just one, or if you're an agency and you have a lot of clients that have a lot of locations, using the right platform is extremely crucial, because as technology changes and advances, and it's things that, you know, marketers have to deal with, as a like it more so in terms of the online like landscape. As that technology changes, the technology that businesses have at their disposal to help manage that is also changing and evolving. And that's why, you know, when it comes to this stuff, it's, you know, you can be a little worried or stressed or scared of all the AI stuff if you look at it only from that angle. But you can also be looking at it like, oh, wait, there's all this awesome technology that will help make my job easier as well. So it's not just, you know, it's two sides of the same coin, and it's just making sure that you are looking at both sides to help, you know, manage everything correctly. It's really pretty remarkable stuff. But we talked a lot, we covered a lot of stuff in this webinar, and we try to highlight as much as we could here in this live stream, and it's just not enough time. So please, definitely, if you're listening to this, go check out the full recording on the Birdeye website. Make sure to check that out. Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn for more expert insights. Our incredible team who put together this, you know, this crazy report where we analyze millions of data points across, I think it was like 150,000 businesses. That same team is pushing out blogs and articles and guides and reports all the time. And we post everything we create on social, especially on LinkedIn. So definitely be sure to follow us so you don't miss any of that great material. Sirit, thank you so much for coming on today. As always, it's been a pleasure. I'm always excited to see kind of what highlights and insights that you bring to the table, and I'm excited for the next one.
Thanks, Justin.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode of Birdeye Live. Thanks, guys.
Birdeye makes creating a stellar online reputation, improving customer experience, and growing your local business a breeze. Packed with easy-to-use scalable tools, our all-in-one platform is ready to power your entire digital operation. Automated review generation and reputation monitoring? Check. Accurate listings across hundreds of online directories? Check. Messaging across web chat, text, social, and Google? Check. Digital payments, surveys, and insights to improve customer experience? Check, check, and check. And our platform is designed for local businesses of any size. So whether you have 1, 10, or 1,000 locations, you can be sure Birdeye can help you grow. Birdeye, the #1 reputation and customer experience platform trusted by more than 80,000 local businesses.